welcome to another episode. This is, depending on which way you're watching these, this is either the first episode of the C's or part 2 of the C's. Diving right in, kind of an unusual record here. This is Chameleon Church, self-titled, 1968, MGM Records. Remember them? I don't, but they were a thing at one time. I got this on eBay. It's like, I guess, folky, kind of psychedelic rock. This is the only record they put out. They were not successful. I think they played maybe a couple of TV shows, got a couple of TV appearances here and there, but really kind of just faded away into obscurity. The thing that's interesting about this band, maybe it won't be to you, but it was to me, was their drummer was a certain dude you may have heard of named Chevy Chase, the comedian, actor. He was the drummer. He was in this, obviously, way before Saturday Night Live. He sings on one of the songs as well. I don't remember off the top of my head which one it was, but he played drums, he sang on one. He doesn't have any writing credits. Dude, Ted Myers was kind of the driving force of the band, I guess you say. He wrote a lot of the stuff. I think he went on to have like a career working with National Lampoon. I don't know if he, that came through his association with Chevy Chase or not, but it's a record. When I got this, I think I bought this because I was a fan of Chevy's, and I think I bought it before I even had gotten this record player from my uncle. It was just something I kind of thought would be like a cool collectible to have. I remember when I listened to it, nothing really stood out to me, but I've since given it like a little bit more of attention, and it's not bad, I mean, if you like that kind of psychedelic folk, late 60s kind of rock music, it's not bad. There's a couple of tracks in here that are pretty good, that's Chameleon Church. So continuing with this minor thread, or whatever you want to call it, we've got from 1980, self-titled, Chevy Chase. Yep, I own this. It's a weird record. It came out in 1980. It was right around the time, I guess, when the Blues Brothers were hitting, so I'm sure that has something to do with why this exists, because, Arista here went to him, they saw what Blues Brothers was doing, and they just were like, well, maybe this Saturday Night Live thing is going to pan out with new records and stuff. Let's jump on this. So they reached out to Chevy, and he agreed and did this record. The difference being that the Blues Brothers music wasn't really a comedy act, so to say. This is a comedy record. I guess depending on your interest in Chevy Chase, whether this is really a comedy record or not is to be debated by you. But it's a weird record. Lots of drug references. I don't doubt for a minute there were probably lots of drugs involved in making this record. Didn't do good, I think they released a single, maybe, I think it's his cover of Short People. They released as a single. But again, this album really just was a blip on the radar. I mean, he probably doesn't even own a copy of this. But it's an odd record. I was a big fan of his, and just something I just kind of decided to pick up just for the hell of it. There's a really, really bizarre quasi cover of Rapper's Delight on here called Rapper's Plight. Same beat and everything, but, he wrote new lyrics. I think Tom Scott was heavily involved in the making of this record. And Chevy's supposedly supposed to be a really good musician, but, he's kind of a wise ass, and so it's no shock that he went in this direction when he had the opportunity to make a record. But, it is what it is, I guess is what they say. Chevy Chase, 1980. Now we have one of my favorite reggae artists, Jimmy Cliff. This is Wonderful World, Beautiful People. This came out in 1970. Originally, this was self-titled, and when they released the song Wonderful World, Beautiful People as a single, they re-released this album and changed the title to that. It's a really good record. Time Will Tell, Many Rivers to Cross, Vietnam, Hard Road to Travel, Suffering in Land, Hello Sunshine, Come Into My Life. I mean, this is a really good album. If you're into reggae and don't own this, you should. I don't remember where I picked this up. Might have been at this record show I went to in Ithaca. I think I might have gotten this there, but I'm not sure. Doesn't matter anyways. Definitely worth checking out. If you're looking for it on CD, probably most likely you'll find it as his self-titled record. And I think it exists on vinyl as a self-titled, but my copy here that I picked up, Wonderful, Beautiful People, this has got to be, it's in really good condition, mine here, and it's got to be like, you know, that early pressing from that time. It's not a reissue or anything, but this is a really good, if you like reggae, Jimmy Cliff, Wonderful World, Beautiful People. More Jimmy Cliff. Got a bit more to go. This one came out in 74, I think, 74. This is called Music Maker. Got it really cheap. Where did I get Music Maker? Oh, Groovacious in Cedar City, Utah. I was out there working, and you know, I kind of luck out a lot of these places where I end up working. I check to see if they have a donut place, and they always do, and a record store, and a lot of times they do as well. Found Groovacious, went over there one time, and you know, in the middle of the mountain desert area there in southern Utah, you wouldn't necessarily expect it, but they had a really good selection of reggae music. I picked up a couple of things there, and nice owners, really cool people, nice store, you know, set up really well, pretty good size. I like that place a lot. I picked this up. I don't think I paid very much for it. I really like Jimmy Cliff. I started more recently, the last few years, trying to dig up a lot more of his stuff. Some of it's a little expensive. I've been trying to find this on CD. It was released or re-released by Wounded Bird maybe in the early 2000s. And now, you know, it's out of print, and the CD is always crazy expensive. I guess my favorite tune on here is House of Exile. That's a great tune. But you know, one of his lesser known records, Jimmy Cliff, Music Maker. Okay, still some more Jimmy Cliff to go. And this one, probably everything that needs to be said has been said about it. This is from 1972. The Harder They Come. Great film. If you haven't seen it, worth checking out. You like independent film. This soundtrack is kind of a hybrid. I guess it's like half a Jimmy Cliff album, half other various artists. It's a great record through and through. I guess this is kind of what really brought reggae music, especially in the United States, to the conscious music lovers. I think this is what really kicked it off. I mean, everybody associates it with Bob Marley, but I think this is what really kind of opened the door. And it's a great album. You can get it if you really want. Rivers of Babylon, that's by the Melodians. Many Rivers to Cross. The Toots and the Mytels have a couple tunes on here that are great. Sweet and Dandy and Pressure Drop. Sitting in Limbo. You know, the title track. The Slickers are on here. Desmond Decker is on here. The Melodians, Scotty, Draw Your Brakes is a good tune. If you listen to reggae, I can't imagine you don't own a copy of this. I think they've put out like on CD like deluxe versions and stuff like that, but you know, I kind of just stick with this original format of this. Harder They Come. Check out the film too. One last Jimmy Cliff record. Not unlike The Harder They Come, this is a soundtrack. This is sort of half Jimmy Cliff, half other artists. This came out in 1986, and it's Club Paradise. Yep, you heard me say it, Club Paradise. I talked about this a little bit in my cassette episode. I started working at a movie theater. This was one of the films we had playing there when I got the job. So I'd be in the back of the theater, just sitting there, and I'd hear the music, you know, from this film a lot. I wasn't crazy about the film at first. Now I kind of like it. It's grown on me, but the soundtrack was great, and I went out in '86 and bought the cassette and would listen to it a lot. And it's right around when I was really getting into reggae, or starting to get into reggae. But this is a really good record. I picked this up at Angry Moms Records in Ithaca. I was up there working. I picked this up there. I also picked up The Harder They Come there as well. Angry Moms is a really cool place. It was really interesting because it's kind of, I guess you'd call it the downtown section there of Ithaca, New York, and it's in this bookstore. I was walking by and I just saw, I guess they had like kind of like maybe a display or a sign up that said like records in this place, and I went in, and like I said, it's kind of like this bookstore, and I was like looking around like, where is the record store? And I realized like you got to go in sort of like the back, and then it's like in the basement downstairs. So I went down there, and it was a really cool place, and they had a lot of good stuff there. I bought much things while I was staying there working in Ithaca. I like that place a lot. This record's got some good tunes. Jimmy Cliff, The Lion Awakes, You Can't Keep a Good Man Down. The other artists on here, Mighty Sparrow, Well Pleased, Blue Rhythm Band. Granada by Mighty Sparrow is really good. American Plan by Jimmy Cliff I like a lot. Probably one of the standout tracks. They released it as a single. I don't think it really did anything, at least in the United States. I didn't even realize until recently that there was a video. But was this tune called 7 Day Weekend that Elvis Costello and the Attractions do with Jimmy Cliff. But this is a really good record. I mean, you might not think so because the movie was such a big flop, but this is definitely worth picking up if you're into reggae. Last but not least, we have 1982's Marshall Crenshaw, self-titled. I picked this up at Plan 9 Records in Richmond, Virginia. I was out there checking out a barbecue place and some record stores. I was working in Norfolk. Just decided to take a drive one weekend, see some other sights, you know. This was his debut. The big track off of this was Someday, Some Way. That was the only song I think I knew from this album when I picked it up. But it's really like a classic of like that, you know, kind of, I don't know if you'd call it new wave, but it's kind of got a new wave-ish vibe to it, and just kind of just straight ahead rock and roll, I guess. But it's a really good album, impressive debut. Surprising it didn't do better because so many of these songs, Cynical Girl, There She Goes Again, Girls, like they all sound like they should have been hits. It's surprising that it really wasn't a little more successful. And he's actually been filling in, singing lead with the Smithereens recently. You know, their lead singer, Pat D'Annunzio, passed away a few years ago, and they still are performing, and I guess they had various singers joining them. But lately it seems like Marshall Crenshaw has been filling in on a quasi-permanent basis, I guess. But this is a really good record if you're interested in, you know, that kind of like early 80s new wave-ish rock and roll. You should really give this a chance. It's a good record. I think a lot of people slept on this when it first came out. So that's all I got for the C's. The 2 episodes. I got these 14 records for the C's. Decided to split it up, keep the episodes a little shorter. By all means, subscribe and all that stuff. Please, you know, leave me some comments. I'd love to hear what you guys think about these records, or even suggesting some other things, some other albums by these artists maybe that I didn't talk about. It'd be great to hear from you. So everybody, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.